What's up, scholars? Today we're going to be introducing part 3 of our climate justice final project. So I have updated, finally, the details page with part 3 information. I've updated the exemplar slides, which I'll go over in just a moment. There is a part 3 template available on Google Classroom, and as always, I've continued to add resources to the resource page. There is a specific section all the way at the bottom about what I've compiled for social justice and climate change. And climate justice resources. And of course, there's lots more on the web. So what is required of you in the details project? The details portion of part 3. First, you're going to include an overview of what climate justice is, give it a definition and why it's used to discuss climate change as a social and political issue rather than just a scientific issue. Additionally, you should talk about climate justice related to your type of disaster. So for example, in terms of hurricanes, because sea levels are rising due to climate change, and the fact that poor communities often live in flood zones or have poorer infrastructure for flood control, that means that they're going to be disproportionately impacted by flooding as a result of hurricanes. Then get specific with your type of disaster. As you know, I've been doing Hurricane Katrina for the exemplar. So, for example, communities of color in New Orleans had to mass migrate out of New Orleans. It took them much longer to evacuate, and many of them have not been able to return to their homes because those areas have been least invested in since the disaster. You're also going to give a conclusion about climate justice and your disaster. So you're going to use your disaster as an example and talk about how we need to take action on climate change, and one of the big reasons for that is because it is the right thing to do from a social justice perspective. So as an example, we can do things like invest in green infrastructure or FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, and those will help the poorest communities and communities of color specifically deal with the effects of climate change. And then, of course, link your resources. I'm going to show you that in just a moment on mine. Actually, we'll show you right now. So I've got part 3, and I've got an overview of climate justice, how it impacts hurricanes, and specifically Hurricane Katrina, with a short conclusion, what can be done, and a short conclusion about Hurricane Katrina and climate justice. Of course, I've included all of the links to my resources. So with that in mind, the reason that this section is a little bit shorter is because to actually turn in your final exam, you're going to compile parts 1, 2, and 3 of your project. So part 1 was just about your disaster, part 2 was all about climate change in your disaster, and here we have part 3, which involves climate justice. So your final exam will just simply be combining all of those into one. So you can see actually my exemplar is already that. It's about 25 slides, which includes all 3 parts and all of the resources for all 3 parts. Now, one thing that we've been running into with this project is people have a difficult time doing search terms for their project. So for example, if I'm looking at climate justice related to Hurricane Katrina, I can just type in Hurricane Katrina climate justice. There's going to be lots of things out there. I use this link especially to talk about Hurricane Katrina, the climate, and what it might foreshadow for the future if no action is taken. But that's going to be a helpful search term for you, the term climate justice along with your disaster, or if you're looking for more generic information about hurricanes, you could do, for example, hurricane climate justice as an example. So to be as clear as I can possibly be, we're beginning part 3 today, and that will also be the end of the work that you need to do for your final project. On top of that, if you have an A as of right now, then you do not need to compile yours into your 3 parts. You simply need to turn in part 3 and you're done. You don't have to do the final exam. More details will come as we move forward on that. Please do let me know if you have any questions. I'm just going to be here to help you this week as folks work on either finishing up parts 1 and 2 or beginning to work on part 3. Thank you so much, scholars.